And that is how you do a voice warm-up with context. So a bit of self-promotion first, before I get into it. I re-released the first chapter of my fanfiction, and I say re-release because I started this back in 2015, and I kind of stopped writing it at the beginning of the year, but now I'm going back, I'm making it good, I'm editing each chapter, and then re-releasing them. So, yeah, self-promotion. Okay, we're going to get into the actual thing now. So going back and editing this, I realized that maybe I need to invest in a pop filter. Black. That's all Demon saw. Pure black. He had no sense of how long it had been since his escape, nor where he even was. Slowly, a white light appeared in the center of his vision. He tried to move to it, but nothing happened. It just began to dance back and forth in his vision, until it stopped again, and he began hearing voices. As he slowly regained consciousness, he opened his eyes, revealing a blurred face before him. It took a while to come into focus, but he eventually rested eyes upon a grunt. Well, that was normal. He probably was knocked out. Wait! The uniform was IMC colors. Quick as a flash, he reached down to his thigh and whipped out his pistol, aiming it straight at the grunt. Hey, wait, don't shoot. Give me one reason. Well, I was the one who saved your ass from being turned into molten sludge by your so-called friends. As the thought began to process, he remembered the situation, having to run from the Ralia being turned on by General Icarus. Yeah, sorry, amnesia. Where's Kira, by the way? She woke up a while ago. I think she's guarding your Titan. It shut down after warping. With a bit of effort, he righted himself off the floor and looked around. He was sitting a few meters from the drop ship, as it was sitting idle on the ground a few meters away. He was in the middle of a clearing, in a forest of red. Every single leaf that the tree bloomed was red, and they slowly drifted down in the light breeze. Kira was kneeling over in front of his Titan. Kraber AP rested in her hands. As the Titan was laying on its back, chain gun sitting off to its side, he jumped up and did a quick self-check. He wasn't hurt badly. His armor was still in one piece, and his weapons seemed to be fine. As he looked on his motion tracker, he saw the 4 IFF tags on his screen. His, Kira's, the IMC grunts, and Sid's. He quickly switched the IMC grunts to friendly, but before he looked away, he noticed something strange. On the very corner of his motion tracker, a tiny blip popped up for less than a second, then vanished. He leaned over, picked up jackhammer, chambered around, and began walking to where he last saw it. The MC grunt was a bit fazed by being completely ignored before getting up and jogging after him. Where are you going? Not even bothering to answer, he held up a single finger to silence her before raising the LMG and activating his cloak. As he did, a strange wolf-like creature lumbered out of the bushes, snarling directly at the IMC grunt. It was a dark black all over, except for red eyes and white accents on its claws, and a weird-looking mask-like face. Her face turned pale, and she quickly reached for her Hammond pistol at her side. Before she could even fire a shot, Demon fired a single shot from his LMG, point-blank at the wolf thing, and it dropped dead on the ground. The gas-jacketed rounds causing it to wish it had a head. Kira nearly fell over as her head whipped around to see what had happened. She looked slightly less worried as she saw they were both okay, and jogged over to see what happened anyway. As she watched, the wolf thing's body slowly began to disintegrate where it lay. What the hell is that thing? Demon was still scanning the tree line, but replied without turning his head. This planet appears to have hostile wildlife. They might not have set up an animal control tower yet. Stay vigilant, there might be more. As if on cue, a large cry of howls was heard off in the distance, disturbing the surrounding birds and causing them to fly off. Keep them off me, I may be able to reactivate Sid. He jammed his LMG into the hands of the IMC grunt and sprinted after the mech, opening the nuclear core on the back of the machine and getting to work resetting the coils. Kira and the grunt were aiming to the forest and firing at the slightest movement, occasionally eliciting a wolfish whimper. Tampering with the nuclear generator was risky business, but he didn't have a protective suit, so he had to wing it. He reached in and began rearranging the nuclear rods within the core. Luckily, they were covered in lead coating, and made sure everything was in place. He looked up as the OS set in and saw Kira and the IMC grunt hastily fire at an advancing line of the strange wolfish things, the bodies piling up in a wide arc around them. Kira was hastily firing her Kraber, a sick pop occurring every trigger pull as the wolf thing's head exploded. The IMC grunt, however, looked like she had no idea what she was doing. She was standing straight up and firing the LMG in full auto, not really aiming at all, only getting kills because of luck and the extreme power of the gas-jacketed bullets. He looked back to see the head of the Titan slowly begin rotating, and the optical sets initiating. Core output at 13% maximum efficiency. Please activate secondary and tertiary core to initiate final startup. No time for that, Sid. Get up and fire on anything that isn't one of us. Initiating combat systems. Powering up target enhancers. Damage core online. Good, now get to it. The Titan slowly sat up, picked up the chain gun, and began walking toward the wolf things and the two grunts. As the targeting finally booted up, he let loose with a colossal cannon, and the things were cut down left and right without much effort. Kieran the grunt let up and walked back to Demon as he fired back at the predators. The IMC grunt gave his LMG back, and he reloaded it with a fresh clip. And Kira also stocked up on ammo that was in the dropship. When they had finished, they walked back inside to see that no more of the wolf things were in the area, as they were thoroughly ripped to shreds, compliments of the Titan. "Where the hell are we?" asked Demon, turning to the IMC grunt, who was now cleaning a pistol in the dropship. "I don't know. I just set it to random jump coordinates so that we could get out of there as fast as possible. The only problem is the systems are fried and I can't get a lock on where we are. And we can't make a warp jump again." "Well, that's just great. Stuck on a planet with evil black monsters with no hope of a rescue crew," chimed Kira, as her face visibly drooped at the news. "Well, I may be able to help," said Demon as he pulled up the miniature screen on his left gauntlet. He hoped that Curran had actually warped the pod, or they might as well give up. As the map loaded, his heart was filled with relief, as about 300 meters away he saw the green beacon of the pod. "Follow me," he ordered, and began marching toward the location beacon. About a minute later, they arrived at what appeared to be a giant box. It was roughly 20 feet tall and 25 feet wide and 40 feet long. The two doors were visible on the outside face, one small, obviously for people, and the other was absolutely colossal. Something a Titan could fit through. The markings indicated a storage pod with the militia logo plastered on the door. Demon walked up and tried to open the pod with a pin code but failed. "Sid, a little help here." The Titan leaned down, grabbed the door at its sides, the colossal fingers tearing through the thin metal, and ripped it off its hinges. "Very subtle. I meant hack it, but that works as well. You two, stay here." He walked into the pitch black of the storage area, the faint blue light on his helmet causing giant shadows to leap around the pod. Without even looking, he reached out and flipped the switch to activate the generator. The light inside the pod bathed the contents in dim white light, illuminating the giants that stood in its midst. Next to him stood the three Titans lined up against the sidewall, all made by him, and all custom fitted onto any mission he might need them on. An Ogre, Atlas, and Strider stood waiting for a master to pilot them. The Ogre was his crowd control mech, fitted with enough explosives to level a small city. It carried a cluster quad missile launcher and had 12 heat-sinking missile pods on its back. Flames were painted all over the sides of it to add to the effect. The Atlas was more for storage than combat. Its core was a downgraded version of the main combat core, and all the AI tracking systems were replaced so that it couldn't even fight without a pilot. Racks for guns and supplies were hanging off all over, and the only sign that it was a death-dealing menace was its size and the arc cannon sitting nestled in its grips. The Strider was his personal creation as well. It was his answer to the complaint that they only have guns. A massive titanium scythe was held in a guard stance across its lithe body. Its killing potential enhanced by magnetic coils around the blade that amplified the energy transferred tenfold. It was painted completely black and had an experimental Titan cloak module. Next to them was a massive weapons rack, his personal store. Every possible upgrade, attachment, and type of weapon set ready to use. There was enough ammunition and explosives to wage a small war. A large rack of 12 specters sat next to the weapons, eyes blank and inactive. A strange spherical object was covered with a matte black tarp next to the weapons rack, an experimental device he hoped he would never have to use. And of course, his pride and joy sat in the back corner of the pod. Covered in a blue tarp was his motorcycle, a severely upgraded base model of an Earth bike. It was powered by a nuclear generator, overkill much, allowing it to reach speeds up to 200 miles per hour, and it had a hydraulic braking system so it could stop on a dime even at full speed. And of course, it was painted the colors of the demon, black and red. Slumped down on a couch he had set in the middle of the room and opened a laptop that was set next to him. He booted up and opened the tracking program. The only problem was, it had no idea where they were. Great. Just great. Instead of trying again and getting the same result, he scanned for communication frequencies and found there was a large source coming from the north where they were. It looked large enough to be a city. That would be where they looked next. He took a minute to scour the frequencies and try and discern the information being transmitted. What he found shocked him. He quickly uploaded the interface of the screen on his left arm, shut it down, and went over to the weapons rack, pulled off a carbine with an HCOG sight, activated a nearby Spectre, and loaded it with essential supplies, such as a dismantled amped Kraber. He walked outside, chucked the weapon to the IMC grunt, who dropped her pistol to catch the weapon. "Hey!" Ignoring her, he walked over to Sid and climbed up onto his back. He opened the core door and switched the other two cores. Power at 47% and climbing. Maximum efficiency will be achieved in 3.45 minutes time. Sid, transfer your AI to the Spectre and initiate tech cloak on the pod.
Aye, sir. The pod has been cloaked from all interplanetary and local surveillance systems. Transfer beginning now. Nodding at the news, Demon turned back to the two women. Okay, do you want the good news or the bad news? Get the bad news over with, Kira replied, a stern look on her face. Okay, well, in short, we're royally smack bam in the middle of literally nowhere. The star map correlate to no known sector of human-controlled space, or anywhere we have actually seen. Both their eyes widened at the sudden news. The good, and also strange news, is that I picked up a communication transmission that was being sent in English. They both looked flabbergasted. It was a while before either could reply, but this time, it was the IMC grunt replied. That shouldn't be possible. How could something like that happen? It has to be fake. Well, we're going to have to find it. We head north until we hit supposed civilization, he said as he began walking, the Spectre following him with a robotic march. You do realize that they support either the IMC or the militia. We are going to be shot on sight. Well, you see, I looked over some of the transmissions. The only
reference to anything remotely related to the Titan Wars is that their main military base is in a city called Atlas. They both raise a single questioning eyebrow at this, and then began following the pilot. Seeing this, he smiled and looked down at the data file. Where are we going to again? Ah, yes, that's right. Off we go to Vale. Once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Not Beast for letting me narrate this. Also, these things are so difficult to edit because I make so many mistakes that there's a bit of a space between uploads. So I'll see you next time. Have a fantastic day.